Hello and welcome to Emerging Form. I'm Christy Ashwanden.
And I'm Rosemary Watola-Tromer, and this is a show on creative process. Hello, Christy.
Hey, Rosemary.
So we get to talk today about one of the most important things for any creative person,
Yeah.
which is stuckness.
Or getting unstuck, right? We're going to
Getting
talk about
unstuck.
how to get unstuck.
How to
Because
get unstuck.
I just read this fantastic new book, Unstuck, 101 Doorways Leading from the Blank Page to the Last Page. And, I feel like that sounds like a promise where you're like, yeah, sure, this is going to help. But this has got to be one of the best writing sort of books that I've ever read. It just has so many great nuggets of like little tricks and tips for getting unstuck when you're feeling in that way.
Yeah, every single little section, 101 of them, has a little key at the bottom. And I've found that her, Ramona Ausubel's stories about her own process and
Yeah.
about her students' process are so relatable and so transmutable in terms of how do I bring this into my own practice. So I think I'm so excited to talk to her because I've already been using her work now in my own work and also in my teaching. So I can't wait to bring her on.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you mentioned that you were already using it in a class today.
Yeah,
Oh,
just
that's great.
today. Ramona
Wonderful.
Ausubel is the national best-selling author, not only of Unstuck, but also of The Last Animal, Awayland, Stories, Sons and Daughters of Ease and Plenty, A Guide to Being Born, and No One Is Here Except All of Us. She is the recipient of the National Book Foundation Science and Literature Prize, the PEN USA Fiction Award, the Cabell First Novelist Award, and she's been a finalist for both the California and Colorado Book Awards and the New York Public Library's Young Lions Award. Her work has been published in The New Yorker, The New York Times, Paris Review Daily, One Story, Tin House, The Oxford American, Ploughshares, and elsewhere. She's a professor at Colorado State University and lives in Boulder, Colorado with her family. Let's bring on Ramona.
Welcome to Emerging Forum, Ramona.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
We are so glad to have you. And I have to tell you, I have loved reading your book, and it has been so useful for me, both as a writer and as a writing teacher. So I just want to put it right out there right away, how helpful your book has been.
Oh, thank you.
I totally felt the same way. And it's funny. These are the kinds of, this is a book to help writers. I mean, it's literally called Unstuck, right? And I thought, oh, this will be a really sweet thing, that maybe I could use when I'm teaching. And I was like, oh, actually, I'm going to use this exercise. Oh, this looks useful. So it's not just for, this is for everyone.
That was really one of the things that was important to me because these are the things that I really use. They are not like hypothetical exercises. These are the things that I have used, some of them like many, many times to keep going and keep writing books, which is like mostly a process of being stuck and then you have to unstick. So I really wanted it to be the kinds of things that could be used by somebody who's writing their very first story and somebody who's working on their seventh novel.
Mm-hmm. And how did it come about? Like, how is it that you decided to make this into a book? Because you didn't have to do that. Was there some kind of sparking event?
Yeah, it started out as a craft talk that I gave for a low residency program that I have taught at for a long time in Santa Fe at the Institute of American Indian Arts.
Oh, cool.
And it was a craft talk on revision. And students kept asking me like, wait, I'm sorry, what is revision? Like you all say this, we need to revise.
Right.
What exactly are you talking about? I know it's not like spell check. So I was like, well, that's actually a great question. And it really varies person to person. So I did this sort of dive into my revision process and had these 8 doorways that some of them are in, sort of evolved form are in the book. And then that kept growing. So then I would be like, well, actually I could talk about this, not just as revision, but starting something, generative work and thinking about ways to see something, get some perspective on a long work. And there just kept being more and more of them. Like, okay, they're starting to like stick together in these sections. And that's when I was like, I think maybe I should write a book proposal and see what happens. And lo.
That's great. That's
And I
great.
think one thing that's really fun about it is that the book isn't just a list of things. It has this structure, and with all the parts. So let's just talk a little bit about what is the structure and how did you find it?
Yeah, so the structure is it's in 4 parts. The first part is doorways in, so getting started.
Mhm.
The second part is doorways through, continuing through what turns out to be most of the process, which is the middle, and
Mhm.
doorways up, getting some perspective, and then doorways out, finishing and moving on.
Mhm.
And I I noticed that I needed to be in a really different brain space for each of those parts, that I was not doing the same thing that worked to get me going in the beginning was
Mhm.
no longer what I needed for some of them. Some of them work in, can keep being useful, but
Sure.
that I needed a different kind of like digging in once I had something. I like had a bunch of pages and I knew something about what this was, but I still didn't know a lot too. So there was like I needed to switch over into a different part of my brain, and then I needed yet another mode of thinking, a much more sort of pattern seeking, organizational thinking, when I was trying to get that perspective and then trying to revise and complete the project.
So I'm
Mhm.
curious, as you're going along and you're like, I need to do this other kind of digging in, do you have a way of switching that switching to other parts of your brain, or was that something that you just had to like walk away from it and know that you'd come back to it when you were a different kind of space, or how did that work for you?
Yeah, there is a lot of that walking away and coming back. I am
Mhm.
always talking to my students and myself about trusting that you know what you need to know for the draft that you're in. And that
Yeah.
when you come back, if you're in your second draft, when you come back for your third draft, both you and the book or story will have grown up together. And then third
Mhm.
draft, you will understand what third draft book needs and you can work on that. But still can't skip ahead. You have to
Yeah.
just do the thing that's in front of you right now, with sort of like the friction between what you do understand and what you don't understand and what you're excited about and curious about.
Mhm.
And that you will make it. If you keep doing that, you
Yeah.
make it to the end, but you can't do end work. And that is what I think was happening with a lot of my students is they're like, I know how to write a first draft. I understand the
Mhm.
difference between a blank page and something on the page.
Yeah.
And then I just was talking to a student the other day who was like, should I give you a more polished draft? I'm like, polished? We're like
No.
1,000 years from polished. Don't even, no way. I
Yeah.
don't want to see that. I want to see what you're like. Give me the like
Yeah.
mud and grit. And that's where
Yeah.
we are right now. That's the good
Uh-huh.
stuff right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how
Yeah.
you're talking about this as a like it is the case that you can't skip ahead, right? And like I guess I'm just thinking, Rosemary, of one of your rules of writing your poem, your daily poems, and one of them is you can't know how it ends in advance, right? Am I getting that right? But it's like you
Yeah.
can't if you think you already know, then you're maybe forcing a structure or forcing
Mhm.
a form that's not correct, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That you like the matter and material and soul of the thing can't be skipped. And
Yeah.
that is not a linear discovery. That's a discovery that you make by trusting your intuition, by
Uh-huh.
listening to the questions, by being like, I don't know what this character would do. So
Mhm.
I'm going to put them in the scene and see what happens. That all happens in that weird, mysterious, dark space. And there's no way to organize your way out of that.
Yeah.
Once you have that, then it's very useful to start thinking in an organizational way. How could
Mhm.
we build this to make all of that soul and matter express itself to the maximum degree? That's critical and really important. You can't I it's nice, I love reading early drafts and I love writing an early draft where I'm like, wow, this is wild. But eventually it needs to like just
Yeah.
smush around and start to make more sense.
Uh-huh.
And I love that pattern seeking. It's
Uh-huh.
so fun. It feels like I'm like sniffing
Mm.
around with my dog nose, being like, ooh, I saw this before. This is also in the end. I can make a big echo with that. And I hadn't totally forgotten that there was that scene where she, smashes the vase on her grandmother's table.
Uh-huh.
That is exactly the scene that's gonna that unlock
Mhm.
this, whatever it is. It just feels like my subconscious has so often laid the groundwork for that organizational part.
Yeah.
And it's really fun to go discover that and then make it come true.
There is something too, isn't there, about it? It just sort of has to happen. You can't force it. You're kind of putting everything together and seeing what's there. And I've been reading Naomi Klein's book Doppelganger, which is fascinating and wonderful. But I was just reading actually this morning this passage where she talks about, she said she still remembers the moment when the ideas for her first book finally sort of clicked and came together, and she saw this thread, all of these threads coming together in this moment where she sort of understood what it was. And I just really related to that feeling of like, you kind of go from, you just have all this stuff and you're not sure what it is. It's all interesting. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, this goes with that. And that means this and this means, and it's kind of a process that has to happen on its own time.
Yes, it really, really does. And you have to keep trusting that you're going to keep seeing more than you can see right now, but trying to skip ahead to look at the part where it all comes together when you're not there yet isn't going to give you anything, because you won't have created all that like mushy whatever it is to discover later.
Yeah.
And that, like, but that feeling, I know exactly what Naomi Klein is talking about, where you're like, oh, I can see it. I see it. Okay, now I know what to do. I'm in that with a novel right now, and it's so fun. I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm like the master god of the thing now, and I actually get it. And
that's great.
I love this phrase. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I love what you said about trust too. I think that's so important, and it's kind of part of the process. Is part of not forcing it is just trusting it and allowing it to happen, which seems like, I mean, it's not how most people think of like creating something where you have to be doing, and you're swinging a hammer, or you're doing something tangible. But sometimes I think people who aren't writers don't understand that sometimes you can be going for a walk and you're actually really working. You may not know it yet, but that might be the walk upon which you have that epiphany.
Yes. Or like standing in the grocery line and seeing something that you wouldn't have seen if you hadn't gone out and lived your life that day, that clicks something into place.
For me, it's the shower. I call it the idea spigot.
I love that. That's so great. I say in the book that Rebecca Mackay, who is, was brilliant, prolific writer, would write in a particular Starbucks for a long time. And she thought that that Starbucks bathroom was magic because she always had an idea when she got there. And then she realized, no, it's that I stood up and moved like 50 feet from where it was. And my body like shifted things around.
It wasn't the magic bathroom.
Yeah. But like, I'm such a believer in trusting the magic to be like, I don't know, the shower is working. That is the idea. That's how it is.
Yeah.
So,
okay, I have a question for you. Are you superstitious at all? Do you have like a lucky tea mug or some ritual that you do that feels fortuitous?
I am and I'm not. I definitely believe in those things. I've been handing out at my readings. I've been collecting old keys. The book is organized into doorways and keys, and so I've been collecting all these old keys and tying them onto little paracord loops, and I am giving them to people at readings. And I'm like, this key is going to unlock something that you haven't been able to unlock yet, and we don't know what it is. And I totally believe in that. But I also have learned to be really flexible in my writing life, that I need to be able to write in very non-ideal circumstances, in too little time, at the wrong time of day, in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
And if I was being too precious, I wouldn't have gotten nearly as much done. So I'm trying to sort of like almost like ingest the superstition so that I can carry it with me wherever I am. I don't need the particular cup. I just need in a way, this book is kind of the like practical superstition. It's all the ways I learned to stand in the thing to like summon that, like whatever it is, like the forces that are inside of me and outside of me all together.
Oh, that's great.
So speaking of too precious, you make the case against the magnum opus. And let's just talk about what is wrong with preciousness.
Yeah. I mean, what's wrong with it is that it's intimidating, and that the more we build this kind of like glass castle in our minds of all the like perfect ways it's going to come together, and it gets bigger and bigger, and there's a moat, and then we're like got animals around it, and pretty soon it is untouchable. You cannot start, because if you start and you put up one wrong wall, then you're going to see that the whole thing is not going to work, and you're not up to the task. You are too small for that magnum opus. All of us, every single one of us is just a person. Nobody, I mean, they're like, I haven't met a writer yet who feels like, oh yeah, I know exactly how to do this, and I am fully equipped, ready. It's going to come out brilliant. Nobody feels that way. It's just not how it is. So we need to just like bring it all back down to the real earth where we live and as a regular person. And you are starting this project with the things that are exciting to you, that are infuriate you, that you just feel like, I have to go discover that thing right now. And you build outward from there. And eventually you might end up with like your life's work. It's possible that you write a 1,000-page epic and it really becomes that huge castle. But you're gonna start in the middle on like those first bricks, and you're not gonna know how it's shaped until later.
And it kind of speaks to, I think, what I kind of think of this gap between our ambitions and like, you get this idea and then you're kind of thinking about it some more. And there's kind of, this moment in the project really early on where you're like, this is brilliant. This is going to be amazing. And like, it's never going to live up to like, your expectations for it or even like what you want to do. And it may even be that, you haven't been doing it that long and we all grow and get better as craftsmen, but what you are trying to do may not match what you're actually able to do. And it doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just that we tend to have these sort of ideas in our head that are unattainable, right? That it's like so perfect. And it kind of reminds me of this saying that I've heard multiple times, and it's totally true. You can have a perfect book or you can have a published book, but you can't have both, right? It can be done or it can be perfect, but it's not.
Totally. I so agree with that. And I also feel like that one of the things that happens in that idea of the magnum opus is that there's a lot of pulling in the ideas that other people have had that feel solid because they have come to fruition. So you're like, I just read this amazing mystery. I'm going to write a mystery. And what you are looking toward is a finished book that's been through all of the messy stuff already.
Yeah.
It's not what you're going to make to begin with. And it also maybe isn't really the thing you're interested in, but right now it feels like I see that exists. There's proof that exists. So I'm going to write something like that because that feels like it's like this illusion of feeling clear and attainable when it's not, and it doesn't belong to you and you're going to run out of gas because you don't care about it. So always, starting with the small, starting with the things that really belong to you and are exciting to you, even if you don't understand them, even if it's like, I'm going to write a story about ER nurses. I don't know anything about that, but that's interesting to me. I'm going to go find out what I can and get going. That's great. I will discover what it is along the way, and then it will grow into the size and shape that it's meant to be.
So this is reminding me of something actually that I used in a class I just taught today that came out of your book. And you have a chapter that you're talking about. Look in a scene and find the opposing forces, or what forces are involved in this, and and see what happens when you bring them together and let them clash. And what are they if you can identify them? And I was thinking about how it's not just in the scene, but it's also in the creative process as well. Like how we have these opposing forces in us. In fact, part of this came up because one of my students, I offered a writing invitation and he did the exact opposite. He's like, yeah, the invitation was no more. And so his poem came out as way more. And I thought how perfect that was. And in this way, this sense of the forces, how these, we're reacting against something or reacting toward it, but whatever it is, that work that you're, that mystery that you just talked about, and we're like, oh, that. Well, what is the force of that? And how then do we bring our own force, whatever our own creative force is, in to meet that? Anyway, so that was something very useful out of your book just today. Good.
I'm so glad. And I'm so glad that your students know that if something is in opposition to what you say, they should do that. I'm always like, here's the offering and the exercise, but do anything. If you're going to take a hard right, take the hard, go Go, go, go.
Follow the juice.
Yeah.
Follow the juice.
Yes,
So
exactly. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about a particular technique that you talk about in the book that really intrigued me. And you talk about writing a half draft. Can you talk about what do you mean by that? What is it? Why is it useful? When do you use that?
Yes, this is one of my very favorite and most precious ones that has helped me so much. So
Uh-huh.
the first two novels that I wrote a full draft to get a
Mhm.
draft, and I wrote them as quickly as I could, and I probably ended up with somewhere around 250 pages, which meant that I had to write all 250 of those pages, and there was a lot that I didn't know about the story yet because I was
Mhm.
in that discovery mode. With the third novel, when I started The Last Animal, I had a lot less time than I had earlier in my life, and I
Mhm.
felt like I also had learned that just exactly how much was going to change between that first
Mhm.
draft and however many drafts I was going to write. So I had the thought, what if I allowed myself to write sort of a thinner thread count? So it's not
Mhm.
the first half or the last half. It's like the foundational half, or maybe even the midline, like sort of
Mhm.
I'm starting at the beginning. I'm going to write through the whole narrative arc or whatever shape it's going to turn
Mhm.
into. But when I get to a part where I'm like, okay, I really don't know what this scene is about yet,
Mhm.
I might skip it completely, or I might
Mhm.
sketch it in just in really light pencil,
Placeholder or
like
something.
really thin
Mhm.
thread count, and then go somewhere where I felt like I do have a sense of what's going on here,
Mhm.
and I want to get to know this character, so I'm going to put them somewhere and do that right now.
Mhm.
That's something that I feel equipped to do and interested in doing. But by the end, I had the same kind of quality of understanding that I had for the first two novels in way less time and effort,
Mhm.
and with this kind of what actually ended up being a really useful, these like nice open spaces to write into. So
Mhm.
when I came back for the second draft, that's what I did. The first mission was to write into those spaces that I hadn't understood the first time, but second
Mhm.
draft me is now like, oh yeah, I know something about what that could be. And then to allow to sort of like breathe more into that, it meant that both of those drafts felt like directed in a way that was helpful, but also
Mhm.
totally open. That's the key for me, is an openness that allows me the freedom without being too intimidating and scary, because like all
Mhm.
possibilities having all possibilities is not good. I need to have some walls somewhere. And if the walls are like, it's 100 pages that you're going for and you're going to
Mhm.
finish it by June 1st, and you're allowed to skip around. Like that's
Mhm.
enough to make me exhale and get to work.
I love this so much, and I love that there's kind of this process too, which I feel like it's part of the process, but maybe you can, like, do less of it where you're, like, going down sort of false starts and things, so you're kind of going through the core of what you know instead of getting bogged down along the way with the stuff you're not sure about, and then, because you may end up you can still change that overall flow, right, at some point, but you've kind of gotten through that first part. I like that
Totally. Yeah.
suggestion a
And
lot.
it's surprisingly easy. Like if you thought of it as sort of a midline, it kind of like
Mhm.
has maybe a shallower,
Yeah.
the plot might be less dramatic, and
Mhm.
the sort of change in the characters might be less dramatic because you're still sort of getting to know each other and calibrating.
Mhm.
How angry is she in this part? I'm not
Yeah.
totally sure yet. So she's a little bit angry. Let's just say she's a little bit angry.
Yeah.
But you can then in like, an hour go back later
Mhm.
and be like, no, she is so pissed. We're going to bring that
Yeah.
dot up all the way to the top of the page, and then we're going to like drop it back down again. That does not take that much effort,
Mhm.
and it's really fun once you know what it is. So it's like
Yeah.
allows you this kind of like nice gentle like rafting your way through it like it's a little river.
Do you feel like it feels a little more fun too because you don't I feel like sometimes in the early stages, like that first draft is just, for me anyway, so painful, and sometimes it's because you don't really know what you're doing or what it's gonna be, and this almost feels like a way of lightening that load a little bit because it's like, "Okay, it doesn't matter. This is just a really, really light draft, and, like, let's just be playful and get it done and then see," and, of course, revising is always easier, at least for me, than writing that first draft.
Me too. So
Mm.
much easier. I am always like, just get that first draft, just do it. And then yeah, exactly. But also like seek fun and pleasure in it as much as
Yeah.
possible. And
Oh,
that
Mhm.
if you're doing that and
Mhm.
you feel like you're allowed to let go of the stuff that's not feeling hard, or there's just no heat there yet,
Mhm.
it releases a lot of that pressure and makes it feel like I can do this. I can totally do this.
Mm-hmm.
So you were just talking about, how angry is she? I don't know. And now you get a better idea. What are some of your favorite ways to figure out characters and who they are and what drives them?
I like to put people in pressured situations that always, and then ask them to do something that isn't a normal thing to do. Often I'm going to sort of put together one of the exercises in the book is around the material world, so all the objects. So if I put a character in a situation and I look around the room of the story, I'm like, here are the things that are available to you, lady. Here's what you're feeling. The problem is that your kid just got in trouble at school for the 7th time in 2 weeks, and you're really frustrated and you don't know what to do about it. And you're going to walk into this room, and what you've got is like Calvin and Hobbes books and a refrigerator that only has mustard in it and the bills. That's what you have available. What are you going to do? And then she's going to put the bills in the sink and squeeze mustard all over them and sit down and read Calvin and Hobbes. I don't know, but it feels like I'm going to get to know her by her actions, not just tell me all about your life and your background. And that's also useful. And it's not that I don't do that, but I think we can lean too hard on give me that life incident that explains who you are now in one neat package, where so much of what makes us believe and care about characters is the way they move in their bodies and through the world and what they choose to do with the things that we're all familiar with that are unique and different. What's in their grocery cart? What's in the refrigerator? When's the last time they called their mother? Like all this sort of stuff that feels like it's now, it's present tense. I love that. Yeah.
All right. So this is probably our last question. If I put Ramona in a really pressured situation with her book, I don't know what this is going to be, but let's say now Ramona is in a very high stress situation with her book. What is she going to do? Can you think of an actual example from writing this book when you felt super pressured and how you responded to that pressure?
I mean, so many. Let's see. So I think when I came back in that second draft, The Last Animal, and I had this sort of half draft, I was starting a new fall semester. It was a very full year. I had a whole bunch of MFA advisees, and I had really technically no time, but I was like, I'm going to make the time.
Yeah.
But it's realistically going to be like maybe an hour, 4 days a week, probably 3. How am I going to actually get through this second draft with that reality? And that the system that I came up with was to have a 2-week date with each chapter. The first week I wrote into that chapter. So all of the empty space that air and white space that was left in the half draft, to just write the new things that I now either understood or felt like I had a sort of glimmer of. And then the second week I would read that chapter back on Monday and I would revise based on what I now knew. And it really leveled up. Each of those chapters was very much further along after those 2 weeks. And it was totally clear what I was supposed to be doing at any given time. So every week I knew exactly what my mission was. It felt calm and steady. And I also knew exactly when I would be finished, which is one of the things that I think for me, for whatever reason in my brain, I'm like, if I know when I'm going to be finished, then I'm going to be okay. If this is going to go on for absolutely ever, forget it. I'm doing something else. That one really saved me.
Yeah, I really like this because it's kind of like it is giving space for the process, but you're also being kind of deliberate and planning. And I find that I teach a workshop on book proposal writing. And one of the things about the workshop is it sort of gets people to commit and we have timeline and deadlines. And I think so often just setting some sort of deadlines or some sort of timeline for yourself can be so helpful. Like, at the end of the day, you can't force things, but you also sort of have to show up for them, and having a plan and sort of making sure, and it sounds like this plan that you made for yourself was very realistic. You had the experience to know that it could work, and you sort of had a system. And I think, bringing those systems to the creative process can be really fruitful sometimes. And I feel like this book has a lot of sort of tips on how to do that.
Yeah, that is my jam right there.
I love it. I love it. Well, we have so many more questions for you that we are going to get to in the bonus episode, which those of you who are paid subscribers to Emerging Forum will get to hear next week. We're going to continue this conversation and ask a little bit more about Ramona's own creative process. And you can become a paid subscriber at emergingforum.substack.com. Thanks for joining us, Ramona.
Thank you so much. This was such a joy.
Thanks, Ramona.
If you like our show, visit us at emergingforum.substack.com, where you can find more, including show notes and back episodes.
There, you can also sign up for our bi-weekly newsletter or become a paid subscriber, which gets you bonus episodes every other week.
That's emergingforum.substack.com.
You've been listening to Emerging Forum. This is Rosemary Watola-Tromer, and my co-host is science writer Christy Ashwanden. Our fabulous audio producer is Cherie Turner, and our music is created and performed by Kira Kopostansky and edited by Leah Shaw. Kate LaRue designed our logo, and Jack Mueller, of course, inspired our work and the name of this podcast. As he always said, you must obey the poem's emerging form. Until next time.